As we stand at this pivotal moment in global economic development, this discussion, I think we can all agree, is not only timely, it is essential. The future of work, as we heard in multiple rooms since we started attending the summit yesterday, is going through so many rapid technological advancements. I don't think there was a single session that we've all attended that this topic was avoided, because it was so essential to not only the future of work, but in all aspects of our lives. There's also discussions around climate imperatives, but also, perhaps very importantly, global shifts in global labor market, which I think is essential for us to discuss today. And I am very pleased to introduce this morning our esteemed panelists. I have with me this morning His Excellency Rex Gatchalian, Secretary of Social Welfare and Development of the Philippines. Excellency, you are very engaged in economic policies that promote equitable job opportunities for workers, as well as diversification of economy, and making sure that no one is left behind when it comes to economic opportunities and jobs. We also have with us Her Excellency Devika Vidot, the Minister of Investment, Entrepreneurship and Industry of Seychelles, also an advocate of economic diversification, of inclusive economic growth. Welcome, Excellency. And last but not least, we have Alexandre Allard, the visionary and entrepreneur who is behind so many transformative projects in Brazil, including Sao Paulo's Cidade Matarazzo, an ecological transformation project that marries urban transformation and development with sustainable development. He is also increasingly shaping the positioning of Rio de Janeiro as the green technology hub of Latin America. Welcome, welcome everyone.
Thank you.
And with that, I think we can dive right into the discussion. I think to start with, it's very important, since we have two esteemed policymakers with us here on the panel, is to talk about the role of policies and policy interventions, not just today, but also in helping us shape greater opportunities for job creation and equitable job opportunities in the future. So if I may, Secretary Rex, I'd like to start by asking you, what present-day interventions do you think will have the most impact on inclusive economic growth, perhaps over a decade from now?
Well, when you talk about inclusivity, you have to always remember that we have a big segment of our population, what we call the have-nots. They are people who live below the poverty line. And we always say that the greatest asset of a nation will always be its human capital. But we can't unlock that human capital if we don't make the critical human capital investment right here, right now. It's quite impossible to talk about the future if we're not going to put the seeds in the current times. The beauty about what we have right now is policymakers have this golden opportunity. As we see economies grow, like in the Philippines case, where GDP is growing at a very fast pace, we have the golden opportunity to actually make investments right here, right now. And the beauty of it is, we have the necessary tools to make the design tweaks that we want in programs. For instance, in the Philippines, or in numerous countries, conditional cash transfer for the poorer segments of the population is the most desired tool. But we all know that the conditional cash transfers of the past may no longer work for the current situation. So but because of technological advancements, because of numerous innovations out there, we can mix and match the different conditional cash transfer designs out there to make the critical investments in our population right now. Case in point, gone will be the days where these cash transfers that are aimed to make capacity building single dimensional, rather than we can use technology or artificial intelligence to start capacity building for our next generation of poorer people. So in terms of policy, we can make it more inclusive by changing the design of current conditional cash transfers to make it more adaptable for the outcomes of the future.
Thank you, Excellency. Excellency Devika, maybe you can talk to us about your insights when it comes to policies that promote and enhance more equitable access to decent work, and how that contributes to sustainable employment.
Thank you, Maria, and good morning to everyone, especially to my colleagues from the Seychelles. I think that the government has a fundamental role to play as facilitator and, of course, as guardians of society. And there are a couple of examples that the Seychelles government is currently employing, which we find has been very successful in terms of ensuring inclusivity and securing decent work for our people. One example is a scheme which is catered, which is targeted at youth unemployment, and that's called My First Job Scheme. Now, that scheme has been formulated on the basis that government subsidizes at least 40% of a school leavers or a graduate's salary, and that gives the employer certain reassurance that they can take on school leavers. And another scheme which is working very successfully is the Skills Development Programs scheme. And that, again, the government provides a subsidy of up to 70%, and again targeted at the youth, school dropouts, or the youth who have not managed to secure a post in a professional center. So the government supports allowances paid to them up to 70%, which then gives them the ability to go into a role in the private sector, obtain the training, on-the-job training. And of course, you know how the economy has been, it's very dynamic, and there are times where there are certain vulnerable groups of society, such as young mothers or the specially abled segments of society. And there's a program that's designed specifically for them, where the government finances training programs so that these groups of societies can reskill, can go attend the trainings, obtain new skills so that they can enter into a different role in the private sector or in government as well. So I think there's a lot that we can do, and these are a few examples that the Seychelles has employed and which is really, really successful.
Thank you, Excellency. I think the key here, again, the key point is about inclusivity and reaching the most marginalized segments of a community, as also Secretary Rex has mentioned. But also in the case of the projects that you mentioned, these specially abled segments of society, the youth, the high school dropouts, and what have you. So this is the theme, if you will, of this segment of the discussion. I will now like to ask Alexandre. I think we're all very curious to learn more about your projects in Brazil. They're quite interesting. So maybe if you can start by telling us a bit more about Cidade Matarazzo, about your work in Rio with green technology and turning Rio into this hub for technological advancement, specifically in the green sector in Latin America.
Yes, thank you. So thank you for having me. I'm not a member of government yet. You know, we write the ecologic transition plan for the government of Brazil. And as a private person, Mr. Luta made that in our place. You know, we create giant spaces which transform cities. And right now we're transforming a country like Brazil, and we're now preparing for other cities. So I'm a private person with a very strong political agenda. At Mata, what you need to understand is we have a vision that something extraordinary of inimaginable consequences happening right now in the planet. So what you have to understand is we're facing right now the convergence of three things that is going to completely change humanity. First, and I'm sorry to say that in Abu Dhabi, but energy is going to be free. And we're talking 10 years from now, okay? Today, energy is not the produce of an output anymore. It's not anymore a flow, it's a capex. And when you see China, last year, China put on wind and solar 250 giga. This year, planning 300 giga, reaching 1,000 gigawatts, probably year after next. And by 2030, 3,000 gigawatts. This is 2 times the energy consumption of America. So they will have an excess of output only from technology, which price is getting divided by 10 in the next 10 years. So energy will be for free. Imagine a world which today's world is defined by energy, where energy is free. Now, for another minute, imagine what's happening on the labor side. Work is going to become free. In 10 years from now, we will all have a robot which will be our maid, you know, cooking the best food for us during the day, cleaning our house at night. And if you have a big issue, the last version will probably be able to do open heart surgery better than the current surgeons that are practicing today. And that will be a less than a $10,000 device. Those guys are going to invade our planet, produce everything that human beings are producing today, better than we do. The third element that is happening, the giant element of the convergence, is food also, and I know that's a big debate here, is going to become free. We work and I invest in companies in precision fermentation. We produce sugar at scale for free now. It's just a giant swimming pool. It's energy and water, and bacteria are doing the job. And the same thing is happening for protein, etc. Now, just for 1 second, imagine the convergence of these three things: energy for free, work for free, food for free. We're talking about a shift in our humanity which goes way, way, way beyond us as human beings moving from the Stone Age to the current civilization. We're talking a next level paradigm where we have to reinvent what is the position of the human beings on this planet. Maybe finally we're going to give up with that extractive model we have created. And what is the job? The job is to bring humans back where they belong, which is nature. Because the only thing that technology will not replace is a little device we all have here, which is called the heart. It's a machine that vibrates. And the entire humanity, everything that defines this planet is defined by vibration. This is what has created this giant ecosystem, this miracle that is unique in the universe. Plants, insects, everybody vibrates and everybody speaks. For 1 second, think about it, the same language, the language of nature. Because an ant, a bird, a monkey, or you, when we see a mango, we see exactly the same thing. We see the color, we see its ripe, we see the taste, we already feel it, we're going to take it, we're going to eat it, and we're going to do our function, which is the trees waiting for us, is make sure this reproduces. That's what has defined our planet since 4 billion years. And my job as a company is to bring human beings back to nature using this vibration. And that's jobs for everybody, because our future is not to do the job of machines, it's to bring human beings back to being humans. And how do I do that? So we create these gigantic experience places in the center of cities where we bring nature back to the center of cities to reconnect people with nature. Not reconnect everybody, reconnect all kinds of people who are ready to reconnect with nature through one thing that defines nature, which is beauty. Beauty was invented by nature. And we convey this beauty through artists, through music, through food, through health. We convey this reconnection. And in São Paulo, we started this experiment. It's a giant experiment at scale in which I invested a few billions. And it's a giant success. We now are expecting next year 20 million visitors. It has changed the shape of São Paulo. And we are, as you said, expanding this experiment to other cities, the 5 largest cities of Brazil. The government has given me, in all these cities, the center of each city is investing billions together with us. We're changing a country at scale, reconnecting an extractive country, you know, back to nature. And it's a luxury product, accessible by everybody. And now we're starting to do that in the Middle East, starting with Riyadh. And so what I just want to say is, you know, we as human beings need to understand that there is an alternative to our system today. It's just being humans again, you know, and ensure our mission. And there's a giant business model behind that, and work for everybody, just selling our heart, our vibration.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexandre. I think since we started talking to Alexandre, who's our representative from the private sector today on this panel, maybe we can steer the conversation towards collaboration between the private sector and the public sector. If I may, Secretary Rex, if we can talk about, in your view, what systems do you think can be put in place to ensure that there is government and business accountability when it comes to promoting inclusive economic growth?
Well, going back to the Philippines, democracies around the world, there are numerous voices out there. Government democracies have this vibrant community of people's organizations, civil society organizations, non-government organizations, private sector. And it's government's role to make a welcoming environment wherein policy is not just solely crafted by government or by the state, but we have to create that environment, that deregulated environment that will encourage all these varied voices to come in and craft policy altogether. A while ago, we were talking about inclusive economic growth, inclusive job creation, and I alluded a lot about conditional cash transfers. See, if we go at it on our own, if the state will take the whole responsibility of crafting conditional cash transfers on its own, and then it would be limited. But if we bring the different voices out there from civil society, from non-government organizations, from the private sector that have boundless or limitless content, limitless technology, then they can infuse new perspectives into government policy and government programs. And it will make it easier for us to pull large swaths of the population out of poverty, make them part of the productive workforce, make them part of that inclusive vision we have of an economy that's growing where everybody partakes from it. Again, the bottom line here is trying to get as many voices there are in the room, on the table, and making sure that that environment is not just welcoming, but it fosters a deeper sense of communication, a deeper sense of idea exchange.
Thank you. Excellency Devika, we spoke earlier this morning about the work that you do with the UN as well as the private sector to make sure that they are also part in measuring and monitoring and reporting on progress against the SDGs. So maybe you can share some insights about that specific initiative.
Definitely, Maria. So essentially, if we're looking at achieving our goals as a community, as a nation, we, as government, we cannot do it alone. And it was imperative that the private sector, the government rallies with the private sector, we come together and we do it together. What we did last year, as an example, is we partnered with the representatives of the UN, and there was a training that was given to private sectors, especially the larger corporations based in the Seychelles, and they were instructed on how to employ methodologies that would allow them to also monitor and measure the impact that their corporate actions were having in relation to the attainment of the SDGs. So it's no longer just a government-led initiative, but it's got to be everybody. It's an inclusive effort. And as government as well, we also leverage on some excellent relations that we have with, for instance, with the UAE as being an excellent partner in helping us in achieving our goals, in promoting and supporting human resource development. I mean, just this morning, yesterday, we saw a cohort of around 30 of the top leaders in government graduating from the executive leadership program, and that was the second cohort. So this is the sort of partnership that we need in collaboration, and this is inclusivity. This is not just one country making it, but it's also looking out for the others that actually need the help and genuinely offering and lending the help so that we go together. There's a saying that says, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, we go together. So, I mean, I just wanted to share that with you all this morning as well.
Well put, Excellency. Thank you. Alexandre, you talked a great deal about your vision for bringing humans back to nature, bringing humans essentially back to the basics. But if we can talk about, in a practical sense, your work with policymakers, with also private investors, specifically in your two transformative projects in Brazil. Can you tell us more about how you managed to ensure that these transformative projects are also socially responsible, are also economically inclusive?
So sorry if I was a little visionary and dreamer here before, but I'm going to give you a practical example. Let's take the case of Rio, for example. So Rio de Janeiro is a city that since 100 years have been very slowly falling down, okay? Since the abolishing of slavery, it was a very, very rich city, and then it went down, then it was the capital of Brazil, which moved to Brasilia, and the city has been going down and down and down and down and down. Now it's a city of 13 million people. It's not a small city, and it has no future. It's one of the most well-known and attractive city in the world. It is the most beautiful city in the planet. I mean, from a geographical standpoint, I'm French, I know what I'm talking about. And I'm not afraid to say it is extraordinary lifestyle and story. So what's the future of this city, and how do we invert the curve? So very, very pragmatic. So I work with government, and I say to government, let's create, at this moment where we have the technology nomad of the planet and they don't know where to live, and this city is so fantastic and it makes everybody dream, let's create the conditions for the techno-nomad to come to Rio and make Rio the capital of technology of Latin America. And so it's very simple. It's very ambitious investment. We are going to create 2 gigabyte data center, the largest in America, not one of the biggest, the largest in America. And that data center will be solar powered. So we already started, it's already 100 megabytes, and we're going to take it to 2 gigabytes, connected to the old port of Rio, where the Rio was born. The city has given me 40 hectares of land in the city center with 1.5 kilometers of harbor. That harbor I'm transforming into a beach. I'm planting 45,000 trees, 2 million small trees. We are creating 700,000 square meters of live spaces with culture, with food, you know, to attract these techno nomads from all the planet around one concept, which is nature. We're rebringing the Mata Atlantica forest there, and we're working with the communities because there, in that area, is where everybody knows Samba. This is where Samba was born. This is also the first favela in the history of mankind, was born there. And I, in that, involved the entire community. We're going to create 25,000 jobs in the community with this project. So we include the community. It will be the first autonomous city center in the world. So the entire energy of that city center is produced in-house in that city center. So this overflow of energy we produce, we bring energy for free for 100,000 people in the area. So this is what we do. So we create, this is pragmatic, this is real, if you want to be pragmatic, this is a real pragmatic project. How does it work? The government of Brazil put 1.5 billion in order to restructure the harbor, change where the cruise ships are going, help me build this beach where today there is a harbor. The city of Rio give us a giant concession of all the land so we can ensure security. I organize a fund to plant all these trees, and we invest 5 billion in order to do the project. So this is the kind of scale that we're doing. In the end, obviously, the result of that, all the big companies, they organize a roadshow for the government, and we're going on the 4th of May to meet Mr. Zuckerberg, Mr. Jensen, all the owners of the big tech companies, and say, come, this is Rio, this is where you need to put your people. So, you know, it's a whole ecosystem based on nature, but with the ambition, you know, of multi-billion-dollar projects, you know, like what has driven the change of Dubai, you know.
Thank you, Alexandre. I think I'm just being mindful of the time. I'd just like to finish up by thanking my panelists for a very insightful discussion. And I would like to thank the audience, and I really sincerely hope that we can continue this very important conversation beyond this room. Thank you.